I got the notification.
Right, there we
Here
go.
we go.
Hello, Internet.
Hello, Internet.
Today with me, I have Wesley David Scott, also known as Zulu Panda, the recording artist.
There we
And
go.
it's actually, I guess, what's that word? It's like 10 seconds in and I already forgot a word. I was going to say, Kismet. It's Kismet that Wesley's here because we're going to talk about that restaurant, Corduroy,
Oh,
because
goodness.
I hope people who don't live in Vancouver know what it is. But I guess everybody, pretty much everybody across Canada has a restaurant that decided that they weren't going to take the government's crackdowns anymore, and they didn't want to close their restaurant because they don't, I guess, want to lose money or put their business in jeopardy, which I'm going to go as be the bad guy here and be like, I can understand why a business would want to do that, but I'm not condoning the activity.
Yeah, and I mean, I welcome all sides of the conversations here. I should back this up by saying that I live in the neighborhood where Corduroy is in Kitsilano, and
Don't be too specific. We don't know the
I
crazy fans.
back in the day used to perform there, and they had a killer open mic and good flatbread and a really good sense of community. And I can't believe that the same place that um, I was part of this community of us essentially would take this stance. It's been really intense. Like, they were shouting at public health officials. She's been saying all sorts of, the owner that is, has been saying all sorts of controversial things and posting outrageous posters in their window that talk about trespassing and common law. And she was part of a Save Small Business BC rally, which was co-opted by anti-maskers. And the guy that it has been associated with, they have all sorts of weird ties to some anti-Semitic leanings and stuff, and it's just really awkward and it's very confuddled. And yeah, I am shocked that she took the stance she did.
It's weird how you go from I don't want to lose my business, and then you're like, okay, we're gonna be like this pro small business in BC, and then like anti-mask creeps in, and then all these other like douchebag,
Yeah,
close-minded anti people, like you said, the anti-Semitic people somehow get their claws in there, and you're like, wait, what? How did
I
this
have to
happen?
admit that my knowledge of it is not 100%. So I'll preface this by saying this, but I believe one of the guys that led the anti-mask rally that was in front of the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
St. Paul's there, um, he was, I think, if I remember correctly, he was one of the fellows who was filming when they were telling the public health officials to get out of the restaurant.
Oh, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I just want to say that it wasn't just the owners of the restaurant, it was everybody in the
in the
restaurant. So it was
restaurant.
like, it was weird because I feel like she was almost emboldened by these people who were like, look, we're against this. We'll support you. You don't have to close. And then maybe somebody got in her ear and was like, look, this is against the law. They can't really do this, but it's
Yeah,
it's like fully within the realms of law. And they she said she willingly shut down finally after about a week of this, but it was also like they're going to take her business license away, and then yeah.
yeah, and I mean, it's really surprising more than anything else that
Yeah.
they would post all these things, that they wouldn't have anybody with masks working there at the time, that they
Hmm.
they had these uh, coverings on their windows that said no trespassing. And they were just generally oppositional to people who are taking public safety to heart. I don't know, it just seems, if the question remains more than anything, if a person is opposed to public health guidelines, what else are they compromising on?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, because you're like, if you don't care about the safety of yourself and others, and you're serving us food, what else is going on there? Like, is there little mouse
Yeah,
poopies in your restaurant?
yeah, I mean, I'm all for restaurants and service workers. Like, I have lots of friends that work in the service industry, and I really feel with them for them with these new regulations. Like
Mhm.
it's really intense and hard for a lot of them to keep up their livelihoods. But there's a way of doing this that doesn't antagonize uh, government officials effectively.
Yeah,
And
as mhm.
there's only so much you can do you know to do it
Yeah,
appropriately.
as far as I've seen with all of this and everything, even in the States, antagonizing government officials never gets you leniency. It's never like you're like, you guys are wrong. You got to get out, quit trespassing. And they're never like, oh, okay, we see your point of view. We're just going to head out. Maybe if you could clean things up a bit, we'll, we'll leave you, let you do your business. And it's like, I started this all by saying I could kind of see where she's coming from, not because I'm okay with all of that other bullshit she was talking about, like the trespass and all that stuff. But it's like, this is what, like the fifth lockdown, third lockdown? I don't
It's
even
hard to
know
keep track
anymore.
at this point.
Yeah. But it's like they keep telling these restaurants, being like, okay, you're closed. And it's like the same day they have to lay off all their staff. Like it was the same thing that happened up at Whistler that we kind of hinted about last week, but we never ended up talking about. But it was like on Monday, Bonnie Henry, like, this was 2 weeks ago now, right? That Bonnie Henry made the last public order to close everything?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe so, because the order is up until the 19th, I believe.
Yeah.
So
So basically, Bonnie Henry's like, I'm gonna make an announcement on Monday. And then at Monday at like after 12 o'clock noon, she's like, all right, we're closing down in restaurants eating. And then all of these restaurants were like, oh wait, that's us. Like that's all the notice they get. So by 3 o'clock, they had like Whistler had laid off hundreds of like restaurant staff, and all these staff wrongly went to go party at a restaurant called and
oh yeah.
um God, I can't remember the name of that. Anyways, so that was a big to do at Whistler, and then Whistler was like, we're terminating your lease, you're getting out of here. And Charlie Victoria's, is that
Yeah.
right? I just spit all
Well,
over
I
my
know the
screen.
initials were CV, but
Yeah. So that's what happened at Charlie Victoria's. And then here, what happened was she's just like, fuck it, we're going to stay open. There's nothing you can do, because it sounds like you were saying before, like that guy who was taping and who was like at the anti-mask thing. It sounds like he got in her ear and was like giving her like the sovereign citizen spiel, where it's like,
even if he didn't get into her ear, even if he
mm,
was just a patron there, you have to realize that that's not people in the community supporting her. That's people with their
mm,
own agenda who are co-opting the business. And
mm,
down the line, is this person going to have enough support behind them to remain open? Like, I think she's made damage to her presence in the community. I think that
yeah.
I won't I as a musician and as a somebody who can eat at a restaurant and who chooses who they pay, like I can make the decision which stages I stand on, which restaurants
Mhm.
I eat at, and I won't go there again.
Yeah. And
Like
especially being in kits, like I don't want to generalize, but I love generalizing. Kits is full of pearl clutchers, and after you've done this, your whole neighborhood's going to be like, we don't appreciate what you did, and we're going to remember. Because like on one hand, it's a well-off neighborhood because it's like there's a lot of money in Kits, but on the other hand, the type of people who accrue that kind of money don't have like long memories, and they hold
well,
grudges.
and for people who don't know the venue, it's a small space. It's all
Mhm.
indoors. There's no outdoor seating, and there's really no option for outdoor seating. They don't do takeout. And it's very close seating in there. So you're in
Mm.
small wooden booths effectively, or some side tables, and it's not like, I mean, it's great for that crowded pub environment if you like that,
Yeah.
because it's got that neighborhood vibe to it. But I think that ship has sailed. I think that they these regulations must have been so frustrating for them to try to meet, but they didn't make any attempt to adapt either.
Yeah, and even like if they would have shut down like a restaurant like that, for me at least, I'm like, I'm not going in any like close space. It's like COVID, if anything, gave me like social claustrophobia, where
Yeah.
I don't see myself being like floor seating in any concerts anytime soon, or like being in a crowd. Like think back to like the last time you were in a crowd where there was like people
Yeah.
touching you on three sides. Like I can remember like going into mosh pits and stuff and just being jammed in there. And I think about that and I'm like, whoa,
I
like,
remember, what was it, back November 2019? I
yeah,
saw the Distillers and Alexis on Fire
mhm,
in Vancouver, and it was just packed, right? Jam
yeah,
packed. And we were making wisecracks about the virus and stuff in the new Uber on the way over.
yeah,
And so it was just, we had no idea what was ahead, but yeah, people were just milling in and out, and you have no idea like the extent of things. And I'm sure they didn't at the time either. I don't know. Like I do want to say that Corduroy was one of the first places I got to perform at.
mhm,
Corduroy has had some great food. I've had more than a few nightcaps there, and I did enjoy it. But you don't always think of the story behind things, like how they're interacting in the kitchen or what the owner's like. And if the owner is contributing to sovereign citizen style thinking and engaging in protests that are aligned with anti-mask movements, it's not my cup of tea. I think it's very important that people take this stuff seriously. And to my friends in the service industry, I really thank you for your hard work and keeping up with the ever changing and inconsistent regulations, because it's not easy, but we really appreciate the effort. So
yeah. We had Don Falconer on a while ago. He's actually left the job, but he was a manager at a restaurant. Be awesome if I could remember which one it was. But he was saying like the hardest thing is the inconsistency. Like they never
yeah.
know, like, should I even give people shifts this week? Are we going to be open? Should I buy food? Like another thing too that you don't think about is in order to run a restaurant, you got to think about how many nights worth of food you're going to have at any given time. Like it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, the restaurant's closed, whatever, everybody go home, come back. It's like there's probably a week's worth of food in that restaurant that where's that going? Is that like that's all came at cost to the business and that's going to cut their bottom line. I'm not familiar with the menu too, so it's if it's like a higher end place that has like steaks, that's even worse. Like they got to pay for all that
Yeah.
food costs.
I mean, I think in the case of Corduroy, it was mostly pub fare and like
Mm.
flatbreads and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I hate picking on them, but I'll never go there again. Like, I know know people say never, and there was one guy who was just like, I don't think this is financially motivated. I don't think she's doing it, but
Mm.
it
It's almost worse
there's
if it's
only
not
so much.
financial.
Yeah, there's only so much you can push somebody's buttons before and like, because I perform there, people have
Yeah.
associated my music, my performance with venues like that. I don't want that. Like, I
Mm.
don't want anything to do with that. And yeah, I mean, it's like, I heard that guy from Gusto, which was the other restaurant that was very vocal about that Save BC Small Businesses protest, and that had people indoors against the regulations. And I heard him on, I think it was Linda Steele, and he was trying to suggest that there was no warning, there was no community consultation and stuff. But I gotta think that, like, the government has to listen to some sort of special interest groups from time to time. Like, you don't think there's somebody from Whistler in the background giving them like their 2 cents? You don't think that Bonnie Henry is being swayed a little bit by maybe what John Horgan or Adrian Dix thinks? There's got to be some sort of back and forth that goes on, or at least special interest groups like trying to sway people. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little conspiratorial myself there, but
Maybe they need to have like a restaurant lobbying group like the
yeah.
tobacco industry.
Well, I
One
know the
thing,
taxi cabs do
yeah.
that, right? So
One thing too is like it's like even if there is back and forth, one thing that is the most apparent is every time there's a close down like this, or like they shut the schools or they close gyms or they close restaurants, that doesn't affect the politicians. And this is just me gonna sound like Alex Jones. It's like, so if it doesn't affect like their personal bottom line, like their paycheck, they're not going to care about it as much. So, like Joe Rogan has said on his podcast a lot that maybe they should start looking into if the politicians just start closing everything, maybe they should make less money. But then again, then you're getting like a financial kind of reason for them to leave everything open, but it's like it's almost like a little kernel of popcorn that's been in the back of my craw that's just like these politicians like Horgan has made probably the same amount of money in 2020 as he did in 2019. Never mind that fucking surprise election he had that he
Yeah.
just pushed through. I don't know. Oh,
Well,
and
this
he's
this
only in there on a loophole anyway to start with. Okay, that's it. I'm not going to talk about
No,
politics
no,
anymore.
no. I mean, I'll come straight up. I tend to be of the socialist mindset.
Mhm.
So I would prefer Horgan's demons to the BC Liberals. But that's
Yeah.
just my position. The thing that comes to mind is I remember, I think, a story about Brian Mulroney, and he was saying that when he became Prime Minister of Canada, um, he was taking a pay cut, and he felt the need to keep his family in the lifestyle they were accustomed to. And so basically, he talked about offhand speaking with lobbyists and special interest groups
Hmm.
and, feeling sway, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm remembering a story from a while back now, but like, this is the mindset of people who aren't paid enough, let's say.
Yeah.
So when somebody's not paid enough, they're going to look for a reason to get paid more. I mean, it's the same reason why Trump didn't take any extra money, only got that $1 or whatever he claimed, because he was already financially supported by other things. Like, he
Hmm.
didn't need that amount in that regard. And so
Yeah. I
it's
just
hard
want
to
to
know.
I just want to cut in here real smooth
Sure.
like a knife. I just want to say it's probably one of the maybe half a handful of things that Trump did that was good was the $400,000 the US president gets as like an annual wage or stipend or whatever you want to call it. Like I think they get 100,000 every 3 months. He would always take his $100,000 check and donate it to a different government sector, which you could say what you want about it if it was giving him special favors in the back end, but he's the only guy who's done that as president. And
Yeah.
that's the last good thing I'll say about Trump.
But I mean, even if that is a good thing, it makes you think, okay, how can he afford to do that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like it's
And that's the
because, yeah.
question about any politician, for that matter, is,
Hmm.
if they're playing ball, who are they playing ball with? So
Yeah. That's like how once they stop being president, they go and make like $500,000 speeches for Goldman Sachs. And you're like, oh, you
yeah.
just get to go. Like I could talk. You could pay me 500,000. I could just recite any of these 166 episodes of this podcast in front of Goldman Sachs if you're going to pay me that kind of money. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the name tag comes with privileges, right?
yeah.
But the other thing too, which it's kind of related to the Corduroy thing in some ways, but more just about the BC COVID-19 experience in general, is, we look at Bonnie Henry like she's making all these decisions and she's the one who's clamping
Hmm.
down without notice, and she's a public figure. Like,
You
she
could say
is.
puppet. No, I'm just joking.
No, but she is a bureaucrat. Like, she is not necessarily even making the decisions. She's explaining them.
Hmm.
Sure, she probably has a health sciences background, of course, but like, uh, you know, it's she takes her cues from the politicians, and they just
Yeah.
let her speak and take the brunt of things. And people have been so mean to that woman, and she doesn't deserve that because she's just following what the politicians want.
But at the
So,
same time, she does have swag, and there's been a lot of love. Maybe more at the beginning. There's love to Bonnie Henry, but
yeah,
I'm with you. Like she does get a lot of flashback right now because everybody's just fucking like it's been over a year, and like
yeah.
me personally, I'm like I'm fucking done with COVID. Let's just fucking whatever. But like a weird thing I was thinking about was like they should give us this is totally like randomly out of the
No,
sky,
yeah.
but it's like now we're dealing with this Brazilian strain. And I was like, can we just get that OG China strain and give it to me? Because the OG China strain was very light on younger dudes and or younger people especially, but this Brazilian strain is kind of hard on younger dudes. So if I could just go back and get the old strain,
Well,
give
the
it to
truth of the
myself
matter is, you should
willingly.
go forward and get the vaccine, because
Yeah,
our
but
government, the
there's a
Canadian
lineup.
federal government, has been
Yeah.
doing a poor job of distributing that. So that's
Yeah.
my 2 cents on that regard. But
That's the thing. Like the one thing that always fucks Canadians and Canadian companies is distribution, because it's like
yeah,
a lot of the times you forget just how big fucking Canada is. Like it killed Target. The size of Canada killed Target. Like they didn't realize how much it was going to cost to ship things around and get it stocked and all that stuff. I mean, it's not as bad with the vaccine because you could just send it to like different places. And it's like, but it's like, yeah, they have mishandled it. I don't know enough about it personally because it's just looking into stuff like that annoys me. And it's like I get enough annoying stuff that I'm still trying to get a little bit of blissful ignorance. But yeah, like
yeah.
the
Well,
I
and I don't know about you,
yeah.
but I'm just tired. Like I'm just
Oh
so
yeah.
tired of the news about it. And like I love my dad to bits, but he is old school conservative, and he just
Mhm.
yammers on and on and me about the how
Yeah.
things are buggered up. And
Yeah.
I don't blame him because everyone's frustrated, right?
Hmm.
But the thing that I was going to say is like the attitudes are tired and shifting.
Yeah.
And it went from a time where I used to sell these are the Dr. Bonnie. Oh, let's see if I can do this. Dr. Bonnie Henry candles, right? And
Yep.
people loved them and stuff, and that was great. But now I'm seeing like all these people posting and selling anti Bonnie Henry stuff. There was one
Oh
guy who was
yeah.
just like F Bonnie Henry and like selling these giant decals, right? And like he's making a profit on the antagonism, which wasn't
Hmm.
there previously and is very palpable now.
Yeah.
And again, I come back to my original point was just like Bonnie Henry is just one person talking about the science of things and dealing with politicians. Like putting F Bonnie Henry on your truck isn't going to solve anything.
Yeah, it's not like Horgan's gonna see that and be like, "Oh, that guy doesn't like Bonnie Henry. We should fucking
Yeah,
open these restaurants right away." I want to get back to piling on Corduroy
sure.
because um I don't want everybody to just be like, "Oh, Corduroy's this great, awesome place that just kind of effed up this one time." Because you had someone send you a document of their health violations
Yeah, I
from
mean,
the
I wasn't aware of this
last
before recently, but yeah,
six
there's
years.
a big number of they have a record of health violations, and apparently it's open to public domain.
Yeah.
It's
So right
go
now
ahead.
they have 8 outstanding critical infractions and 3 outstanding non-critical infractions. And that's not just all this like shut down indoor dining stuff.
Yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
goes to just the basics of kitchen cleanliness. I mean, I'm not some freak when it comes to food safe, but I
Yeah.
want people who prepare my food to be clean. So
You might not be a freak, but this is going to gross you out cuz I can't resist reading you what happened. And I mean, maybe this is stuff from the past that they dealt with, but I'm not above. It's the internet. That's what we do. We pile on. We're going to milkshake duck the Corduroy restaurant. That's what we're doing. So back on May 4th, 2016, after a routine inspection, Corduroy had a critical infraction because their mechanical dishwasher does not provide sufficient washing and or sanitization action to remove contamination, which is disgusting.
yes,
And
yeah, but that
then,
was also a while back.
yeah,
So
I mean, I'm not above going into the past. It's still in the
yeah,
past. Was this a year later? Oh no, 2 years later, 30th of August, 2018, on another routine inspection. Oh, I just want to say they had 2 annual inspections between these two that passed, so that's good. But this one, they had 3 critical infractions. Um, the premise was not in good repair. I mean, that might just be like a broken step or something. Equipment, utensils, and or food contact surfaces are not used in a manner that ensures safe and sanitary food handling. I don't even know what that means
yeah, that's
personally.
pretty definitive that it's not clean enough for customers.
What I think that might mean is they might have like an old, this is just a guess off the top of my head, and I'm taking liberties to say the least. I think maybe they probably had like a piece of old wood that you can't sanitize properly. That's me giving them a gimme because it's like, oh,
That's a
you wanted to
gimme.
be trendy. Yeah. Oh, and premises had signs of rodent activity. which is mucho grosso.
Yeah.
Um, and then they had some non-critical infractions. Hand washing stations weren't properly supplied and maintained, which they fixed when the inspector was there. So I guess that's disgusting still. And
Yeah.
then temperature records are not being used to monitor critical limits. Basically, what that means is when you work in a restaurant in the back, you have to look at the temperatures on all the fridges and then mark down at different times during the day. I don't know if it's been a while, so I don't remember. It's either once, twice, or three times a shift. You just write down what the fridge is at to make sure that all the meat and anything that could be spoiled is kept at the proper temperature. And that they weren't. So basically, what that means was they weren't writing it down in a log. And then, the next month on the routine follow-up, they had they did their premise still wasn't in good repair a month later, which I mean, I guess private contractors are hard to find. And
I
then
guess.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I guess it's just
Yeah, fix the step if that's what it was. And then on April 15th, 2019, so this is their first ones during COVID. The first time this would have been kind of after the initial lockdown of COVID, and then they opened up if you follow certain stipends for restaurants. And they had four critical non-compliances. One was there is inadequate lighting and or ventilation on the premises. That's lighting. I guess it was
it's a
too
pretty
dark.
small, dark place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which could be said about other things.
No, I mean, it's. I used to live in Chinatown in Victoria. I'm familiar with places that are less than quality establishments. I'm not judging necessarily on the basis of that, but it brings up questions. It's like there's a record of violations. There's all this kickback against public health officials. They're marching in contentious events, speaking out, associating themselves with people who are less than reputable.
If they didn't have some of these specific ones, like I still got more to go through, and like the rodent one is fucking disgusting. The not hand washing stuff is disgusting. Yeah. And if you didn't have, like, if they had a clean record right up until she was like, F off, we're not going to do this, I'd be like, all right, maybe I could see it. But now I'm just like, oh, gross. This place sucks. And then, so I'm just going to name the other ones. So these are still the critical ones from April 15, 2019. The restaurant had potentially hazardous food is not stored, displayed, or transported at a temperature of 4 degrees Celsius or below. So that basically means their meat fridge wasn't cold enough, which can give you salmonella.
Mm-hmm.
The premises is not maintained in a sanitary condition, which is extra gross because that was back when we thought if you touched something outside, you were going to get COVID for sure. Premise still had signs of rodent activity. Conditions on premises may lead to harboring and breeding of pests. That's gross.
Yeah.
And then they still failed their temperature monitoring stuff, and their food safety plan is not maintained to reflect the current menu, which is vague. And yeah. And then that brings us to the 3rd of April this month, and they had 4 more critical failures. And this is weird. This isn't even like an inspection. It's just like it says critical questions, and then it says COVID-19 safety plan developed and in use. No. 2-meter separation maintained between patrons of different parties, except when partition in place. No. Patrons remain seated while at a licensed establishment, except to use the washroom or leave. No. Oh, that means people were just milling about, talking to each other and touching each other like animals.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen the video, it's very clear that they were just going back to business as normal. Like it was very clear. I mean, it's hard to run a business. I'll give anyone that, but this is not the crowd. This is not the population that's going to support you long term. You
Yeah.
know, this is not how you seek community support.
These
There
are
are
fair weather friends,
yeah,
ma'am.
definitely. I feel like they're using her. And I mean, maybe she has drank the Kool-Aid, maybe she hasn't. It's hard to know. But
Yeah.
like the no trespassing, common law court, $100,000 fine stuff she's posting in the window. That's
Mhm.
just super, super weird. And I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I I sympathize with restaurants, and I made that crack about Chinatown and Victoria, but like, you know, there's a lot of like great businesses in Vancouver, in Victoria, in Kelowna, Kamloops, and throughout the province. But we have these standards for a reason, and if somebody's
Yeah.
not adhering to them, if they're not going to play ball, then that's why we have business licenses. That's why we have health inspectors, you know, to deal with this. And the fact that they're being bullied out of an establishment, that's the other thing too, is like,
Mhm.
what audacity to think that, you know, you can bully an inspector out of your business. It's
Yeah, and it's
not
like
not
they're
right.
just doing their job.
Yeah,
Like, don't bully these people. They're just inspectors. Like, they don't have malicious intent. Like, what's disgusting to me is the last inspection was just if they were following COVID protocol, which they weren't on all four areas. But they didn't even get into like the actual health and safety of the restaurant. Like, did they deal with their pest problem that has come up numerous times, or the possibility of harboring and breeding those pests? We don't know. Probably not, I'm going to guess, if this is the attitude she took to just the COVID stuff.
yeah, yeah. I I can't really say much more about it. It's like it's just frustrating because it's in my community, right? Like
Yeah.
this is a place that I've participated in. This is a place that I know. I walk past, and you know, it was funny when I said straight up, I'm not going there again.
Yeah.
Somebody accused me of virtue signaling in this regard.
Ugh.
And that's an interesting topic in some ways, because if you say, I will no longer do this, are you really putting out the bat signal, or are you saying to people like, I don't stand for this?
Mhm.
And you know, it could be interpreted either way, of course, but I think that it's important to talk about these things. And you
Yeah.
know, especially when it comes to public health safety, there's no jokes. It's like no one wants to get sick.
I'm
That's
glad
the
you brought
truth.
up virtue signaling, because I'm the first person to call someone out for doing that. Like, it's disgusting. I don't think this is virtue signaling on your point, because I can actually see you not going there anymore. And I've never been there before in my past, but I'm going to say the pest stuff and to a lesser degree, the COVID-19 ignorance kind of got me. So I'm probably
Yeah,
never going to go there either.
yeah,
Like, I don't even drink that much anymore. So I probably won't even be drunk enough to like forget about the mouse poop and then just go eat there anyway. So, yeah, I don't think this is an instance of virtue signaling. That's more like um, when you say it's just like being a Sunday Christian, where you just like tell everybody you're virtuous because you want people to know you're virtuous, and
yeah,
you're not that type of person. And you were basically being like, I'm not going to stand for this. This is bad and this is gross. It's actually kind of creepy once, because for me, I was just like, oh, this girl's just being weird and keeping her restaurant open. And until you told me all that other stuff with like the anti masks and stuff, and I'm like,
yeah.
that's,
I mean, even if she is pro mask, which from what I hear, she is not, she
mm,
opened her establishment in full view, had no one in there wearing masks,
yeah,
including staff, and was operating as business as normal. Like, you know, she participated in this march. She spoke out against the regulations. Like,
yeah.
this is who this person is who's running this establishment, and you get to make a choice. Do you want in on that or not? And not me. So
Yeah, exactly. Like, there you go. 100% of this episode of Outrage Factory will never eat a corduroy again. Thank you very much. Imagine, oh, she's going to have to make a very awkward apology to her.
I don't know how you walk back from that, man. I
Oh,
don't know.
it's going to be like, she's going to have to be like, look, I like, for me, I would just pull at the heartstrings and use, have you heard the term white lady tears?
I've heard the term.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
if
don't know.
I
It's
know
hard to
enough
talk
about it.
about without coming across as racist, but it's when like old white ladies say dumb stuff that's either racist or like this, just ignorant. And then when they get called out for it, they just like start crying so that people feel bad for them instead of holding them to task. So I think we might see some of those on her apology tour. And I don't like, she's probably going to be like, look, I was in a financial state. Like, that's the only way I would feel kind of bad until I
Yeah.
learned about all this other stuff.
I mean, it really depends on the community as well. Like you,
Mm-hmm.
as you say, in Kits, if you're that close to the beach, you know, Cornwall's pretty close to the beach. I'm ways away from the beach because I do
Mm-hmm.
not have that income bracket by any means. But
Again, with the specifying where you live, Wesley.
yeah, but no, this place isn't Kits. It's a neighborhood thing. Like
Yeah.
I can't deny that. It's you know, there could be people who are just going to stumble through and go there
Mm-hmm.
again. There could be people who, you know, are looking for a bar with their other retired friends. You know, they could go in there. But you know, I hope that this leaves a lasting impression in people's mind. um
Yeah.
because I don't think people who would have frequent that place right now live in the community. I think that they're people who are, you know, rallying to the cause, so to speak, and I think they'll forget her when everything's up. So
Yeah. So from that, I think we've fully
I
dumped
think we
on
killed that one.
Corduroy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we dunked on them a lot. That was pretty fun. It's like kind of bad because you feel bad for them, but at the same time, when you find a just target to kind of lean into with some of your COVID anger, it's very cathartic to be like, you fucked up and here's why you fucked up, and I don't like you anymore. So it's like, it's almost like, besides the whole point of this podcast, it's almost like you don't even feel bad. Whereas other people are kind of like just not utilizing their COVID like anger rightfully and just kind of lashing back at
Yeah.
everybody willy nilly. Whereas once you find a good target like this, it feels pretty good.
Yeah. And I mean, granted, like it's not like something I have on my resume by any means. I have, I wouldn't go to this place. I haven't been this place for a while, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's something that I am glad they will be done. That's for sure.
Yeah. So let's switch gears. Let's
Yeah.
talk about Twitch. Do you
Yeah.
use Twitch at all?
No, but I have a friend. So Twitch obviously being mostly used for gaming.
Yeah.
But there are people who stream it for other things. Like I have a friend, Rob Fillo, who streams it for his singing and songwriting.
Shout out.
Um, yeah, and he is very talented. But you know, the thing is that it sounds like Twitch is going to be very stringent on who's on there, and they're actually hiring an independent law firm for investigative purposes. So
Yeah. This
there's a
might
little
just,
bit of
yeah. This might
background
just be trying to get
scariness.
ahead of the whole hate speech and stuff that you not Facebook and Twitter are running into internationally. But like, I
Mhm.
was like you, like I saw like, so basically what's happening is Twitch is coming out with these rules, and they're saying that if their patrons break these rules, even not during a Twitch stream, like just out in the world in the wild on their own, then they're kicked off the platform. Which at first you're like, holy fuck, I don't know if I'm comfortable with platform having a morality clause. Like, are we really that far along? And then I kind of looked into it, and the stuff that they're going to get rid of you for, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm okay with this.
Yeah, and that's the thing
Yeah.
is it for benevolent purposes, so to speak? Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the wake of Trump, of course, you know, he was kicked off of X number of platforms for his
Yeah.
behavior, but that was on platform. So the
Yeah.
idea is if somebody is, you know, absolutely offensive off platform, are
Mm-hmm.
you still going to give them a chance to speak when they could incite problematic conversations?
Yeah.
So,
So I guess I'll just tell you what the actual thing is. So they're saying that you're only getting kicked off for serious offenses, and the company is currently defining serious offenses as incidences of violent extremism, credible threats of mass violence, membership in a known hate group, sexual exploitation of children, and non consensual sexual activities. And like, yeah, if people are doing that shit, get them the fuck off, because
yeah.
I don't want to accidentally watch some fucking
Yeah.
terrorist or sexual exploiter or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could equivocate with the terrorist thing, maybe, but no, I mean, you don't want anybody who's peddling anything
Hmm.
that's, yeah, we got
Yeah,
enough problems with those politicians. So,
the hate group thing, you're like, well, Proud Boys just got called a hate group, and it's like, should they be banned from Twitch? Sure. I mean,
yeah, I think they should. I think that's fair.
I
I
don't
think that,
act like, yeah, because they could peddle their hate group stuff on Twitch, which would kind of be, actually, that's funny because I actually had a run in with a hate group in video gaming
oh,
a
yeah,
long time ago, like 10 years ago, when playing COD on Xbox Live was just started coming out. There's like the Xbox 360, and I was playing video games, and it's like you would basically, what would happen is you'd get match made into different teams, and then you'd fight the other team, and then you could all talk to each other through a headset. And I was playing like one Saturday, and I'm like, whatever. And then there's a guy and a girl who start talking to me. I'm like, oh, cool, whatever. And then they're like, we played a couple games. They're like, hey, do you want to come play all? Do you want to stick with us? So it's like you can group up, and then the next time you're match made, you stick with them as like a group, and then you go into the next match. And so
sure.
we'd done this for like 3 or 4, and they're like, hey, Dale, do you want to clan up? Well, my name was Dalebot, still is. And clan up just means like you put the initials of whatever clan in front of your name, like your username. So it was SWP. I'm like, whatever. I've been playing with you guys. This is cool. So I put SWP as my clan tag. And then that way, when people from their clan come on, who it's like, calling it a clan is actually very problematic. But it's like, if
Yeah, that's
somebody
a
from
WoW
the,
thing too, right?
yeah,
So,
if somebody from the clan comes on and they haven't been playing with you, but they see that you have SWP, they'll be like, oh, this guy's cool with someone from our clan, so we can team up or we can play or whatever. And like Wesley said, on WoW, you can actually get benefits and stuff from being in this clan. Like you get access to banks and special buffs and stuff, but not on COD like us playing. So we're playing a couple matches, and I'm like, hey guys, what does SWP stand for? Like your clan tag, whatever. And I don't know. I was expecting some like dumb like video game thing or like meme reference, but they're like, oh, single or supreme white power. And I was like, all right, I'm not in your clan anymore. Bye.
oh my
I
God.
just got out. I was like, oh, what? And I was
Well, you
like,
made the right choice, that's for sure.
yeah, I was like, yeah, sorry guys, I can't be in your clan because that is disgusting. And bye.
Oh my goodness.
And it was so funny because I was like, oh, these people seem pretty cool. Like we're playing whatever. And then I heard that and I was like, these fucking disgusting monsters. But yeah, it's like, it's pervasive, and like it's almost like grooming. Like,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And there's a
where they
lot of
do
that
that.
grooming that happens, I'm sure.
Hmm.
But it is kind of ironic in some ways that a game where you're going around killing other people has standards for the way you talk to people. Like you can't tell somebody you're going to kill them, but you can kill them in the game. Like
Oh yeah.
it's,
That's now. This was back in the Wild West days where they like
yeah,
didn't monitor the chat at all.
yeah. And I think that, oh man, those chat moderators have such a tough job. Like they're so important, and I don't think like I just it's always so like I am very glad I don't game anymore, because hearing about everybody's Gamergate stories and all that, it
Oh my
just
god.
it's
Yeah.
another world. It's like just don't
Yeah.
hate people. Just be nice.
Hmm.
Just
Like I
just
still
be nice.
game, but I mostly just do it by myself because I'll watch TV or movies at the same time. And then so it's like it's almost detrimental because I'll be like half paying attention to the video games, so I'll suck at them. So if I'm in a group of people, they're like, what are you doing? Why aren't you paying attention? And I'm like, I was watching TV, and they're like, well, fucking get your head in the game. I'm like, this is a level of
You're
dedication I'm not
asking too
really
much
willing to
commitment.
give. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then I kind of ended up with a group of friends that I play with every once in a while now, but it's been the same guys for like 4 years. But so, and they're not white supremacists, so that's nice
Yeah. Very nice.
because that would be very, I can't even imagine like a conversation with those people. It'd just be like terrible. It'd be like, "What do you want to talk about? Did you see this new movie?" They'd be like, "Is it all white people?" And you'd be like, "No." And they're like, "Well, didn't watch it." And you're like, cuts everything right down.
Yeah, I just watched the movie Trial of the Chicago Seven, and it just blows my mind just how imperceptive of racism, especially in the United States, people have been throughout history.
Yeah.
And just like it's interesting how we're coming forward with things now, but we've still got such a long way to go. And I really hope that, I mean, you don't want fascism on the internet, but at the same time, too, moderators like this on Twitch hopefully will allow for a better community in the long run.
Yeah,
So
and another thing too is like how are they going to catch people? Because this includes like doing stuff like I guess if someone's in the news and you see that they've done all this horrible shit and then you're like, "Oh, they also have a Twitch account. Let's just
yeah.
get rid of that." But it's like it's on one hand it's almost like virtue signaling like we talked about before because it's Twitch being like, "We're not going to accept any of this stuff, so just get that out of here." But on the other hand, you're like, "Well, how are you going to know that someone's doing this other stuff unless it's very public and in courts?"
Well, that's the investigative component I was talking about at the
Oh,
beginning. It's
yeah.
like, so they're hiring this law firm to help them investigate, but like, so what are they doing? So they have your information at least. So they have your
Mhm.
name, they have your location, presumably.
Just Google
They have
search
your
you.
topic, and they'll search you out. So they'll look for your places of business and things
Mhm.
like that. It's hard to know. It's hard to know where that line is. But corporations are all about protecting themselves, right?
Yeah.
So it's they'll just do what the bare minimum they need to
Yeah.
prevent their own liability.
They'll buy some of that data from Facebook apparently and then look at that.
Probably, yeah.
Let me ask you a question because we keep hearing about like it's basically, for lack of a better term, the last 4 years of everyone's life have been Datagate, where it's like somebody stole all this data and they stole it, and you're like, oh, that's terrible. And but at the one time, are you like, I'm just mad that I didn't get to sell my own data and make money from it? And on the other hand, you're like, because like last week, Dom was talking about how his Google, um, like when he Googles something and a suggestion comes up, sometimes it's nice. It's like if that is that the only thing they're selling us Google, like our data being stolen and then us just getting ads, like wouldn't be the best way to fight that be not buy stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think people in general are that interesting. Like, yes, they collect aggregate data for sure, but like it's not like somebody's trying to spy on you per se. I mean, people are
Mhm.
willingly opting into like computers recording their voices so they can search things on Alexis and all that, right? So
Yeah.
it's I don't know, like yes, it's concerning. Yes, it is invasive, but there are, oh, I don't know. It depends what they do with it, right? I guess that's the thing. So if
Yeah.
they're trying to create false identities, that's a different thing. I don't know. Did you hear
Yeah.
about Amazon creating false profiles on Twitter to try to counteract the news that people were peeing into bottles?
Oh, really? I think I heard something about that. Like, and it's weird because it's like it's almost like they're like people aren't peeing in bottles. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So they tried to like counteract the information by saying how awesome Amazon was, that they'd
Yeah.
never do this sort of thing. But they created a whole bunch of fake personas and everything. And they were basically using aggregate information to
Mhm.
create plausible characters.
Oh,
Um,
that would be so funny. They'd be like, "Hello, fellow Twitter users. I also do not pee in bottles." And you're like,
yeah,
"What?"
exactly.
It would just be
And
like so awkward.
I mean, AI is so complicated now, they can actually generate facial reconstructions that look just like normal photos of people. And so they were making all or acquiring all these fake photos of people and using them as if this is a real person defending Amazon. And I mean, it's that type of thing that really scares me about the internet, as opposed to somebody necessarily saying, oh, look, he looked at the same guitar photo 4 times, you know because let's face it, I look at a lot of guitar photos,
Yeah.
but does that mean that a company like Fender or Gibson or Eastwood is saying, oh, he clicked on our link, we'll send him more advertisements, or we'll send his demographic more advertisements. I don't know. I think that's inevitable in some ways. I think maybe it's upsetting, but it is what it is.
Hey, I'm just trying to. Where do you go to see your Google history?
Uh,
I'm the
you're looking up
worst.
your computer history right now?
Well, I want to look
Internet
up
search history?
my Google search history. Would that just be in browser history?
Yeah.
Oh, there I found it. History. Um, yeah, it's just stuff for the podcast.
You probably want to use incognito mode, Dale.
I don't have to. Like, here's the list of stuff I searched: Bonnie Henry public health order, my own TikTok account, my own Facebook account, Nexium because we are talking about it last week, Christ descent into hell. That was me trying to settle an argument that me and Derek had on the podcast last week, where I said Christ died and went to hell because that's in the. It's not the Lord's Prayer; it's the Apostles' Creed. So I googled that, and I googled DMX and Cortez, the Spanish sailor from the 1400s, because he ruined a whole bunch of Olmec and Mayan history, and that's just nothing to do with this podcast. So it's like, that's the data you're stealing? Is
Yeah. I mean,
just
for
watch
me,
my
it's like
podcast.
this brand of guitar or the new Omega Man character in Invincible. It's like the nerdiest, unuseful stuff ever. So, I mean, I guess if the government, I mean, for instance, I could see it being helpful in some ways, but also scary in others. So, I was watching the trial of the Chicago Seven. It
Yeah.
features Abby Hoffman. Abby Hoffman wrote a book called Steal This Book, which in it basically has parody levels to the Anarchist Cookbook.
Yeah.
And that could be considered problematic, violent, dangerous material. And let's say somebody was looking for that because they wanted to acquire something that they could use for nefarious means. This is something that the government might want to know, or somebody who's inciting hate speech. So they're looking up all sorts of hate speech, right?
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, there's only so much Big Brother you want in the world, but at the same time, too, I think what happens too is corporations are like, oh, we're Google, we have a responsibility to make sure we don't train terrorists. So they maybe give you ad preferences that will lead you to puppies as opposed to, negative things.
One thing I heard that, like, this was back when the NSA got like caught by WikiLeaks just basically sucking up all the data anybody sends or whatever, was they would use it to retroactively convict people of crime. So what that means is you and me were like, fuck, we don't do anything wrong, whatever. So we shouldn't
Yeah.
have to worry about it. But then, like, say we get caught up in the moment, like this woman from Corduroy, and then we do something stupid. And then the NSA goes back through all of our emails. Like, once we're on the radar, then because they'll just like stockpile all this info.
Yeah.
And never
Wait till you're
touch
on the
it.
radar and then
Yeah.
use it against
And
you.
then they go back through it and they're like, and they'll find like 5 years ago, you sent an email to like a friend of yours and you were joking about something. And you're like, hey, what were you joking about? And then they like kind of just find every sort of not really incriminating, but maybe almost incriminating evidence. And then when you clump that all back all together, which is kind of funny because we joked about milkshake ducking the Corduroy restaurant. Basically, that's what NSA was trying to do, was milkshake duck you for your criminal court case.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to know what the intention is there and what the results are going to be in a lot of ways. I think it's still too early, but I definitely think that net neutrality and freedom of information is super important. So I think that the bigger corporations are definitely trying to control things for their profit margins and for insurance purposes, but I don't know, it's hard to take a side.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's like we talk about how bad like NSA is for taking all their data. And it's like we're just ruthless with each other on Facebook and Twitter. Like we milkshake duck each other all the time, which a lot of the times maybe we deserve it. Like I was joking about with you before. It's like it's funny because you could look back at, like, we were talking about old tweets and we're like joking about how we should go back through our feed of like 11 years and maybe delete everything that's bad. And you're like, well, I feel like since I'm not genuinely a bad person, I haven't said anything too bad in there. Like there would be maybe some jokes that were distasteful at the
Oh yeah.
time. Like, but you could probably go back. Like I'm not telling everybody to go back there and find the worst things I've ever said, but I don't feel like I'm gonna have like Crystalia level shit in there because I'm
No.
not a Crystalia level person.
No.
And I don't think you are either, which I mean,
No,
if
from
you
what I
are,
know.
you're not coming back on the podcast. I'll tell you that.
I am not a Crystalia level person. Scout's
Yeah.
honor.
Fuck, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. We're at an hour now. Do you want to talk
Cool.
about do another subject or do you want to
We can
just
talk
go?
about whatever you want for as long as you want. I am
Okay. Oh,
cool with
let's talk
this.
about
I'm enjoying this.
Invincible. Because I
Yeah.
just watched that and you brought it up because you said the
Yeah.
new Omega Man thing, which is that a spoiler? Because I
I
don't know what
actually
you
got it wrong. If I said Omega Man, I
I
meant
mean.
Omni Man because that's the
Ah,
character's name.
yeah.
Um,
It's tough because with like if you don't know what we're talking about, it's a superhero cartoon on Amazon Prime, and it's kind of like a separate universe where there's no actual heroes that you already know. It's like not DC or Marvel or anything, but the
yeah.
characters are kind of like they're the old tropes. Like there's a fast running guy, there's a guy from outer space, there's a Superman level character, and then there's like a guy who throws bombs, and there's like some good stuff. But a good thing about the
Well,
show is it has a little bit of drama in there. Like,
yeah, it's written by Robert Kirkman, who did the original Walking Dead comic,
mhm,
and so he knows he's a very good writer,
yeah,
and at least in my opinion. And it's very well drawn in the classic, almost not quite, but almost Justice League Batman style.
yeah, it's
Um,
very clean.
yeah, very clean, and I like the animation in it. But it kind of turns the idea of the classic Justice League superhero on its head. And without
Mhm.
saying too much of the show, it follows basically the son of their Superman, Omni Man. So the character's name is Invincible, and his journey with his superpowers.
Yeah,
But right out of the gate, it just subverts your expectations, and it's just so entertaining. But it's violent and not uh, PG by any means.
yeah. I'd say it's almost like a cartoon version of The Boys, but more superhero esque. Like it's like The Boys with like that amount of gore and
Yeah.
swearing and real lifeness to these heroes, but it's still like got the sheen of JLA, like a superhero group and the government's involvement and stuff. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's only 4 episodes out, or did 5 come
So
out?
far, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the fifth yet. But
Yeah.
there's so much coming to streaming these days. It's hard to keep up with.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it makes you wonder too, like what is what streaming services are good to invest in long term, because right now it's the
Mhm.
wild west. It's like cable, there's so many services,
Yeah.
and there's so many, like there's so many problems with Netflix right now, all their kind of shady things they've been doing, and then on the same time you got Amazon with Bezos, and you're just like,
Yeah.
where do I want to invest? And then you have Apple trying to do some cool things, but they really don't have the roots in the
Mhm.
streaming world to make it go.
Yeah.
People have been talking about that Ted Lasso
Uh,
or Laszlo
yeah,
Lasso.
I feel like I have to watch that
Yeah,
just because everybody's talked about it. Like it's getting office level people are talking about it. But
but
yeah.
I have a hard time with the streaming because it's not like you say, okay, I want to watch The Mandalorian, so I'm going to sign up and then get rid of it. No, you
Mhm.
sign up and then you're paying X number of dollars for every month of your life. And
Do you want to know a secret? What you got to do, Wes? What you
what?
got to do is you got to get like either a sibling or a friend, and you get like 3 or 4 of you, and you all sign up to one, and then you don't share your log information with each other so that you have access to all 4. because they don't want you to do that. So don't
Don't do that.
sign into one, your friend sign into a different one, and your other friend sign into a different one, and then share the information, because that's bad. I gotta
Yeah.
defend Netflix. Like, as bad as they are, their user interface is still the best and the simplest and the easiest. And it's like there's like this is old man Dale talking. There's been times where I'm like, oh, I should watch something, and I'll just be like, there's nothing I want to watch on Netflix, so I'll just find something on Netflix just because I don't want to deal with Disney Plus's user interface or Crave. Crave's like the worst if you like, unless it kicks itself into the next episode. Like, I watch Bosch, so it'll be like you'll watch one episode and then it'll kick into the next episode automatically. But if it doesn't and you hit back, it just like it like goes back, and then it starts playing like an episode from 3 before, like halfway through the episode, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? And then you like gotta, but Netflix is just like, oh, another old man thing I've started to do is like, so I'm watching all this stuff on streaming, and I keep like losing track of what I'm watching. So now in my phone, I opened up like a notes page, and it's like stuff I'm watching and which episode I make it to, because Netflix is usually pretty good. But I've noticed some of the streaming sites, if you like watch half of a show and then you forget about it for 6 months and you go
Yeah.
back, it doesn't remember where you were in the show.
Well, that's part of
And
the reason I never got around to like Ozark season 3, because I was
oh
just like,
yeah.
it just fell off the radar of the what you're watching, and I was like, oh, okay. But
Yeah,
I just
and
remembered it the other day.
Ozark, you're like, is this familiar because it's the same tone, or did I watch this episode?
Yeah,
I mean, I
exactly.
remember the blue shade, but
I don't remember anything from that show. Like I watched the first season, and then it was a while, and then I watched the second season, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. And so the third season came out, and I was like, I probably should just start again.
yeah,
But it's yeah, I don't know. It's
I'm
pretty
like you, but
lighthearted.
I brain farted halfway through season 2, because it's like one of the things about like Ozark especially is like you watch 1 or 2 episodes of that and you're like, whoa, I need a palate cleanser. This is dark, and
Yeah.
and then you go watch something else and you just get totally sidetracked, and then yeah.
I'm still annoyed that like Canadian content is just so much more limited than American content. Like I hear people talk, oh, get a VPN and all that, but just
It sounds so
it's so
like
aggravating.
illegal.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
I
VPNs are
remember,
entirely
yeah,
legal. They're just not legal to use within that context. It's
yeah,
it I mean, it was very useful when I wanted to travel abroad. And it's
mhm,
very useful if you want to appear in a different region. It's very useful if you don't want what we talked about in terms of storing aggregate data.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you're masking your location, right? That's the big thing.
yeah. One weird thing about Canada is it has all these weird distribution laws, like I was talking about at the beginning of the show with like how it killed Target, but it also has like digital and media stuff where it's like it has to, you like have to do all this other stuff to get in Canada and stuff, and that's why you have to use a VPN to watch a lot of the stuff in the States.
It'd be
Um,
interesting to see how streaming services are required to respect Canadian content rules.
yeah, I
So, like, I
know.
know for television, you have to
Yeah,
have X number of Canadian programs, and same thing with radio.
yeah, like
But
CanCon.
yeah, but what about like, I don't think I've seen a Canadian Netflix show
Yeah, you
per
have.
se. Have I?
Uh, shit. I know there's some that you don't think are Canadian, but they are Canadian. Like
Interesting.
like I know what you're saying. Like with the recording, they have Maple, which is music, artist, producer, lyrics. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So it's like to be actual CanCon, what do you need? 3 of the 4 or 2 of the 4?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the rules to
Yeah.
be honest, but I know that I think I can't remember the percentage. I think it's something like 40 or 60% needs to be Canadian content or something
Yeah.
like that.
So it would be
Uh,
interesting to see if like Netflix has to have a certain amount of Canadian television shows. But it's weird because everything's filmed in Vancouver. It's funny because I
yeah,
always I always
or it
joke
has a
with
Quebec flag endorsement at the end.
yeah,
Like
I
this.
always joke
Sorry, go
with my
ahead.
brother that it just take you out of the show. Like you're watching the show, you're like, oh yeah, and then they go by something you recognize in Vancouver. You're like, well, now I don't believe they are where they
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? I was talking with somebody about the Batwoman show, and they passed by Owl Drugs in downtown East Side Vancouver, and
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that neighborhood look that like street swept in my life. It was it's like they chose the location to look like Gotham City,
Mm-hmm.
but then decided it was too gritty for Gotham City.
What does that say about the East Side that they had to clean it up so
Yeah.
it'd be like the slums from
And
a
I mean, I don't know if it
Gotham?
was a safety thing, like they couldn't have Bruce Wayne stub his toe,
Yeah.
on downtown East Side, but it's yeah, I don't know. It's
The
it's
mayor
always surprising.
should use this to his advantage. Be like, you could film in Vancouver if you film in downtown East Side once a month and you clean up all the needles and garbage bags.
I know it wasn't on your list of things to talk about, but they're talking about relocating all of the encampments that are in Strathcona Park right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Didn't some dude just get stabbed in the neck?
yeah, and so like the way, especially in BC, they've been shuffling around the street community has been, very contentious, because I mean, there's a lot of communities that are up in arms about tents and stuff like that. And Victoria is no different with campers in Beacon Hill Park, but I don't know, man. Like
Yeah, and
the Vancouver already had a problem with like movie industry coming and shuffling out homeless people here and
yeah,
there, but it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out going forward with people being shuffled about.
yeah,
So
especially with COVID, because as places are closing down and people are losing their jobs and not being able to pay rent and stuff, the homeless population is only going to grow. It's almost like this, like a powder keg waiting to blow up that nobody's really talking about. Like they talk about the park and like, because what was the first park that it was in like a couple of years ago that they completely
Oppenheimer,
cleaned out? Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
then
there's just a fence around Oppenheimer Park right now.
yeah, so you can't even go in there anyway. But it's like
No,
they'll take over all of Oppenheimer Park, then the provincial government or the BC or like Vancouver government will be like, ah, we can't have this. Let's get them out of there. And then they'll just kick them all out and then they'll go to another park. Like what was the park they're in now that we were just talking about?
Strathcona,
Yeah, so they'll go
which
to
is closer
Strathcona Park.
to Clark and stuff, I guess.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and then some guy gets stabbed in the neck and they're like, well, we can't have these guys killing each other. So they move them to a different park. But it's like it's all
yeah.
like
And I mean, the shuffle around for the movie industry, they do that a lot already, but
mm-hmm.
there's a lot of issues regarding gentrification, and Vancouver is notorious for gentrification, of course.
Yeah.
But now they're buying up all these hotels, of course, to house members of the street community.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, how's that going to affect the community as well? So, and are those hotels long term solutions or short term, So
Yeah, didn't I see somewhere that they just bought, like, was it the Waldorf or the Patricia for 4 times the asking price, which is good. Like, yeah, just give whoever put that money into the community and like make it nice so everybody can like have a place to sleep and stuff. But it's like, yeah, it's like we're gonna come to a point where we got to address this situation like Toronto, like because
yeah,
right now with COVID, they're still not letting eviction notices be served and stuff. Like they keep pushing that, they keep kicking that can down the road. But eventually they're going to be like, all right, you can evict everybody. And there's going to be like an influx of all these, like,
yeah,
not necessarily like you don't want to say homeless because you don't want to just,
displaced at the very least.
yeah, you don't want to put everybody in one group because there's like people who don't have a place to sleep, but they still have jobs. So they're in their cars or they don't, you have people who are like mentally unsound. So they can't build like a life for themselves. And then you have
Yeah,
like any range of people who would be considered homeless. And it's like, it's only going to grow. And then like, what are you going to do?
yeah. I mean, I I moved to Vancouver. Was it 8 years ago?
Yeah.
I love Vancouver, and I've traveled the country, I've traveled in the United States, and I've traveled abroad too. But what I can say is that, especially in Canada, problems with drugs and the homeless population have only increased.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with the street community quite a fair amount, but maybe I have a more of exposure than some people, but it doesn't seem like what we're doing right now is enough to address the issues, especially when it comes to drugs and people living on the streets. It's still an issue. It's been an issue for decades.
Hmm.
um, I don't think anybody's done enough to really make a difference, and it doesn't sound like the current drug policy in particular is having an impact. So I think they need to try something more drastic, in my opinion, but I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't have a solution per se.
Maybe like because one of the initial influxes of the homeless people was like, was it the 80s when they closed like long-term mental facilities and they just stopped, they just like put all these people on the street, and that was kind of like the beginning of like homelessness as we see it in the modern day. So maybe they should do something like open up a new long-term mental health facility where people who aren't mentally capable of like having a thing for themselves,
Yeah,
but then it's like, where's the money come from? And it's like
yeah.
this whole big
Well, I
thing.
mean, the government seems to invent money out of nowhere, but at the same time, I think a emergency mental health uh, response program would be very helpful. I mean, obviously, that's something that we don't need cops to do wellness checks per se. As
Mhm.
much as I appreciate police presence on occasion, they don't need to do wellness checks if it could be addressed by a mental health professional.
Yeah.
And when it comes to addiction, just having access to the resources to fight addiction, and there we criminalize I mean, I'm not standing on a soapbox here, this isn't my fight, but I think that we criminalize drug behavior so much already, and we don't need to. We need to encourage recovery as opposed to um,
Hmm.
you know uh, as opposed to incarcerating people. But I don't know, it's a tough issue, and I'm just sad in a lot of ways because you already have like a hard time in Vancouver in particular, and in major cities around North America, with drugs and alcohol, and with homelessness, and you know these issues are only being exacerbated by lockdown scenarios and you know um, uh, lack of access to healthcare and stuff. And so it just seems troublesome, and I really hope that after, when things normalize, when COVID is no more, so to speak, which may be a naive statement, with when the
Hopefully
greater
it's not.
vaccines come,
Yeah.
it's when things turn to a shade more normal, that we'll still remember these issues, because I don't want to be talking about this in 20 years. It would be sad if we had the same conversation in 20 years.
Yeah,
That's,
exactly.
I know it's kind of a bummer, but like it's it's still an issue. More overdoses than ever, it seems, this last year, right? So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, especially with like now you see all this advertising like toxic drugs are circulating like more than ever. They need like to have some sort of, what was it, Switzerland, who had like like the sort of like hotel approach where it's like if you wanted heroin, you went to a government facility and you could get the heroin, but you just had to do it there. So they would give you like a bed to sleep in and you did heroin, and there's like no questions asked, and they found that eventually people just stopped using it. But
Yeah, it's
it's
really
like,
hard to endorse that though, because
yeah.
like I have this, the like the I have the socialist on one shoulder and the conservative on the other, saying like, why should we pay for people's addictions? But at the same time too, you're not paying for the addiction, you're paying for the recovery, you're
Yeah,
paying to
exactly.
give people a chance. And
Hmm.
people are only going to change if they want to change, but they have to have reason to change, they have to have the ability to change. And it's frustrating, and especially it's already frustrating with people being sheltered in place and stuff, but yeah, it's, you want to be supportive, especially in times like this. So
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like you, what you said was good. Like people only change if they want to, but so it should be like the easier you make it to change, the more likely they're gonna want to change. So it's
Yeah,
like,
you
I
want to
don't know.
encourage that.
Yeah, like I'm like you, like I'm like, I'm like socialist to an extent, but at the same time, I'm like, if we just give people drugs, will more people use drugs? Like, if people were like, well, work sucked today, I'm going to go get a free heroin dose and see what happens. But there's no way to tell. And
But I
it's
don't
not,
think people are like that. That's
yeah.
the thing, is especially with heroin. It's like if you're doing heroin, you're probably down a darker road.
Yeah,
So,
probably a bad example. But it's like, whatever they're doing now doesn't work. So,
well, and you remember how people were so eruptive when fentanyl was killing everyone, or
mhm.
even before that, when meth really hit the scene.
Yeah.
And it's like people can spout outrage, and then the government reacts with, you know, batons, and they think that everything's going to be solved, but it's not necessarily the case. I don't know. I'm being a little extreme, I suppose, but it's the outrage, of course. So yeah, I just
Yeah.
yeah.
I
I'm,
mean,
I'm I'm tired of being locked down. I'm tired of people dying. I'm tired of this. I just want people to get along and be happy.
yeah.
I'll sing
Yeah. Like,
kumbaya if nobody else dies. Let's say that.
yeah. It's just
But
like today was nice. Though. It was nice and sunny. So it was good to get
yeah.
out. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
like,
We went to the beach and stuff. So
yeah, especially with COVID, it's like, I'm pretty sick of COVID too, but it's like you gotta kind of just go outside and try to not think about COVID for a while to
yeah.
like get through. I mean, don't go like breathe it, don't go play suck blow in the park or anything, but just like try to get outside and have happy thoughts. I mean, we weren't really helping this whole podcast, but hey, watch Invincible. It's kind of happy and
Yeah.
until the people
But
die
I
very
mean,
quickly.
the thing is, it's like as long as we're responsible, as long as we
Yeah.
call people out for being irresponsible, and as long as we're respectful about it, we might get a shot. Although that's not really the point of Outrage Factory, is it?
No, yeah, it
And
is.
that's
We started this by trying to point out how people were bad. Well, like it's not like it's funny because everybody who comes on, they're like, I'm not really that outraged, but you're like, well, we're talking about other people who are outraged because we're level headed. it's like sometimes it's good to kind of take a step back and look at like what people are mad about from like a third person perspective almost. And like, I mean, basically everybody who's in a relationship and has fights has to learn that tactic to be like, why am I so defensive right now? And you like take a step back. So it's like maybe everybody should take a step back and be like, am I upset about COVID, or does this person really need to be sworn at with the full volume of my voice?
yeah, and that's something too. At least, at the very least, we should be reflective of what we want for the future,
Mm-hmm.
because you know, coming forward, what do we want? We want restaurants that are in good shape. We want people to be taken care of and probably be able to fight addiction. That'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Yeah. So I guess that's good enough for talking about stuff. So let's talk about you, Wesley.
Me, yeah.
Yeah. You were tweeting a couple months ago about you were recording. Is that still
Yeah,
going on, or are
I
you
am still
done?
recording. It's been slow. The
Mm,
studio I'm working at, for instance, has had to, take precautions as well.
yeah.
But also at an artistic level, I've kind of run into a brick wall that I need to climb over. So it's coming
Yeah.
along. For me, I've always enjoyed performing and touring. I'm a singer-songwriter. The stage name is Zulu Panda, if anybody's interested. But yeah, I released an album, and then basically, I went from doing 90 shows a year to 5 shows last year.
Ooh.
And so, bit of a shift. And so now I'm focusing on things like recording and writing. And I have ideas, like I have an idea for an 80s action musical, and I have
Oh.
some other
Oh.
things in the works. But
I'm
yeah,
interested in that 80s
yeah.
action musical, like Kung Fury. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see Kung
That
Fury.
was less of a musical, but it was like very 80s themed and it was like way over the top. Oh, if you haven't seen Kung Fury,
I'll have to check it out.
I don't know
Yeah,
where
I'm
you'd
thinking
find it
like
though.
a rom-com, like Arnie meets Kinky Boots type of thing.
What's Kinky Boots?
Oh, it's a musical.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. I'm my musical knowledge is worse than my political knowledge.
I have to admit I'm not into musicals per se, but there are
Mm,
some really good ones out there, particularly newer ones. I just watched Hamilton, for instance. Hamilton's great. And Kinky Boots, Cyndi Lauper wrote some of it, so it's
oh, really?
pretty
Is that
pretty amazing
new?
as well. Newer, yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's fun.
Make sure Andrea doesn't hear that because she'll make me actually watch it. Yeah, I'm like you. I'm not the biggest fan of musicals. Like, of course, there are some like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which like they kind of go above and beyond being a musical, but then it's like you watch a bad one. Like, I don't even want to name one because people are so emotionally invested in musicals that if I
Yeah,
say,
they have their own fan base. Like some people
yeah,
love Broadway and musicals, and you know, I have my soft spots for sure, and I've seen a fair amount, but you know, I definitely appreciate the more modern tones of
mhm,
like Hamilton or Kinky Boots for sure.
yeah,
So
I just hope that your musical 80s comedy is better than, or you didn't say comedy, but action.
rom-com is the word I
Yeah,
threw at you,
I
but
hope
yeah.
it's better than Tommy was because everybody loved Tommy and I watched it and it was boring. I'm
I think,
sorry, old people. Tommy is boring.
yeah, I mean, Tommy was part of its time. That's what I
Hmm.
would say. It's like you have to love the Who, and you have to just appreciate that kind of psychedelia of
Hmm.
Tommy because it really doesn't make sense. But yeah,
Yeah. So you can find your music on Spotify
yeah,
and all the other streaming services, I guess, like Apple Play and
pretty
stuff.
much. Yeah, I think the
And then,
last. So yeah, if I'm doing a shout out here, um, you can find my music on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Bandcamp. The last Bandcamp Friday is coming up. So zulupanda.bandcamp.com if you want to buy an album, a t-shirt, a CD, if you want to use a coaster. That's what
mhm.
CDs are used for these days, right? So, but
Hey, my brother still he won't get a streaming service like, and he just uses just CDs. So he's your target audience. Oh,
there you go.
also your candles. Where can someone go to buy some of those?
Yeah, just shoot me a
Oh,
message.
ah,
I'm on Twitter at Zulu_Panda. Oh yeah, you got the
yeah.
Outrage
After
Factory
Wesley
one.
was on the first time, I got him to make me this custom tiger. I can't remember what that says. It says Flagetum fabrica, which is outrage device. It worked out super good.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. Yeah, I am I like to create things, and so with the candles, I made one originally for a friend, and I really loved it, and it turned
Mhm.
out. And I've made over 200 original designs now, and
Damn.
yeah, there's some really fun ones. Like I've got a one of uh, Dolly Parton here, which is
Nice.
harder to see there. But yeah, they're really fun, and you know they're harmless as much as anything is. So it's a good artistic hobby that people seem to enjoy. So yeah, just message me and I can make one custom.
Yeah, that on Twitter, that's Zulu Panda as well.
_Panda, yeah.
Oh, okay. And
But I
then,
also have a profile on Facebook, Wes's Modern Saints. So
oh,
yeah,
you could go there. So
yeah,
yeah, if you want to get a bitchin' ass prayer candle, just message
bitch.
Wesley. It's really good. Like the process was good because like he was asking me what I wanted and it came out exactly what I wanted. So it was perfect.
Awesome.
Um, Derek got one of him with him and his wife, which is not as cool as a tiger, but it's still pretty good, I guess.
Yeah.
uh yeah. Anything else you want to throw out there?
No, man, thanks for having me on. I
Hey,
really
no problem.
appreciate it. It's always fun to
Pleasure.
chat. Uh,
Oh yeah. Me and Wes also, I think like a month ago, we were part of a roundtable called Outrage Factory Nerdage, where we talked about
Nerdage.
what the DCEU should do in the future with their movies. That's pretty good. That's on there. It was me, Wesley, Derek, and my older brother Neil. That's just in the regular feed. It's on the YouTube page. Uh
We're talking about doing another one,
yeah,
but we have to figure out topics.
yeah, it's
I
hard to
think
get
they,
everybody together. Like the first one Marty missed and we wanted to get him in. But
yeah,
yeah, well,
um,
look for those. One will come out soon.
yeah, definitely.
And then on Twitter, you can find us at Outrage Fact Pod, Facebook Outrage Fact Pod, Gmail Outrage Fact Pod. I don't know if our Patreon is set up. It kind of went down because we neglected it for a while, but I'll try to figure that out. Like and subscribe to us on all the platforms that you listen to us. And you could go to outragefactory.com to go straight to the source instead of relying on a third party to get it downloaded. Yeah, and that's it. Until next time. I just about said keep fit and have fun. Stay angry.